So, first of all, y'all are amazing. Like, I think I may have hit on a pretty important topic here because the number of comments that y'all have sent regarding this conversation or rant that I went on the other day about age and belly dance, and this ageist comment I got from some lame dude on the internet, has really blown me away. So, number one, thank you for being so responsive. Number two, thank you for telling me your stories. I am so impressed and so inspired by the number of you out there who didn't begin belly dancing until you were in your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, and are still going strong decades later, right? This is so important and so beautiful. And I think it's really awesome that you're sharing this because all the time, I have women who come to my classes and they're 50, 60, 70 years old. And they say to me, you know what? I wish I had started so much earlier. I wanted to start, but I thought I was too old. I wanted to start, but I thought I was not skinny enough. I wanted to start, but I thought I wasn't coordinated enough. Fill in the blank, right? But it's very common that people come to this beautiful dance later in life thinking, I'm probably too old for this. And then quickly discover one, that they're not. And two, they should have totally started way earlier because it's so much fun. And it is such a great way to stay young, right? To stay healthy or to get healthy, right? To stay positive, to find a way to express yourself. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir. You all know that this is an amazing dance form that's not only a beautiful cultural dance tied to an amazing culture, but also a way for us to really express ourselves creatively in a way that is body safe, that feels really good, and that we can continue doing forever and ever and ever. Right. So that's huge. I think that's gigantic. And you all know that and you have responded in turn and it is amazing. I love to hear from every single one of you who is belly dancing through life later in life, especially those of you who have come across naysayers, who have come across negativity like I have and are just like, whatever. You just keep doing your thing, right? May we all be able to just say whatever to the naysayers and just move on, right? Can we take this and like dive a layer deeper? Because here is an area where I feel like I'm a little less confident and I'm curious what you have to say because I've heard from some of you professional performers, right? So I feel like in the belly dance world, and I feel like there's probably this for many dance styles, right? You have like hobbyist dancers and professional dancers. I have been a professional dancer now for over 20 years, right? And I train a lot of dancers, but most people come to it as a hobby. They come to it for fun. They come for fitness. I have trained professional dancers, and this is where I see a little bit of a divide sometimes even within the community. And I'm curious for those of you who have performed professionally, so you've gone to a restaurant or a party for pay, right? People have hired you to be entertainment. I think this age thing manifests itself a little bit differently. So here's my story, and here's where I'm curious if I sold myself short or was thinking incorrectly. And I'm curious to hear what y'all say. So I started dancing fairly young, really, within this conversation, right? I started dancing in my early 20s. And now, over 20 years later, I am like, quote unquote, retired from like restaurant gigs. I used to perform 5 nights a week. I'd do up to 7 shows a night at restaurants and nightclubs and weddings and parties and hookah lounges and whatever. I still do the occasional event when somebody requests me specifically and they know me, or if it's like an educational event or like a women's event. I love those kinds of things. But I don't go and dance at the hookah clubs anymore. And I haven't done that in quite some time. Like the real hard stop on all of it came during COVID, which was no surprise. I only had like two places I was still performing at that point because I was like, I have a small child at home. I wanted to be home for dinner. I was in my early 40s and I thought, I don't know, like people might start complaining. And I did not want to get to that point. And I had conversations with a dear friend about this, another dancer. We did not want to become that older dancer, right? There were always, one or two dancers in Houston where if you'd mention them and they were still performing, they'd say, oh yeah, so and so, isn't she that older dancer? And I was like, oh, I don't want to ever be known as like that older dancer. And I don't want to ever walk into an entertainment situation and have people in the crowd say, oh, she's kind of old, right? And so I wanted to quit while I was ahead. And so I had hung on to these last couple of venues. One was like a restaurant that I literally had been dancing at for nearly 18 years. And another was like a coffee house here in town that my company had been dancing at for 18 years that really just felt kind of near and dear to my heart. So I did those and I did nothing else. And then I started trying to find dancers to sort of to replace me, right? So I started a dance company here in town, me and one of my dear friends, because she was having children and kind of getting out of the dance scene. And we're like, well, let's go ahead, instead of just telling all of our regular gigs and customers from the last 2 decades, telling them no, let's go ahead and start booking dancers so that we can continue to provide them with quality belly dance entertainment. And so we were obviously, I thought obviously, looking for dancers younger than us, because I'm like, look, I'm in my early 40s. I think I'm kind of aging out from, most gig purposes. Let's find girls in their 20s and 30s who are looking to perform and let's book them. And that's what we've been doing for the last decade or so. And it's been going really well. It's been really an interesting learning process, right? And that's a conversation for another time, figuring out like what venues want, what they don't want, negotiating their demands. That's another big can of worms. What I have been surprised to see in the last several years, we've had dancers approach us wanting to be booked by our company who are older than I am. And at first I said to my dance partner, to my business partner, I was like, I don't, what do you think? Like, we hadn't expressly been told that we were quote unquote too old to be entertaining their crowds, but we kind of felt like it might be getting close and we didn't want to cross that line. So we had these dancers, these beautiful, they're fantastic dancers. I absolutely have no issue with someone of any age performing this dance style, but I know not every venue and not every muggle audience, especially here in the US, right, feels the same. So we took these dancers on because we're like, we're not going to say no because we, think you might be too old for some venues, and we're going to let the venues speak, right? Like if there is an issue, we will confront that when it happens, right? Now, I'm happy to report that it has not been the issue I thought it would be. We have gotten comments. There have not been many of them, and they've always been very like delivered with a lot of love, right? Um, but I've been surprised. So I've been surprised at how accepted and how well it has gone booking these dancers who are in their late 40s, who are in their early 50s. They're amazing dancers, right? So that definitely helps. They're beautiful. They're amazing dancers. But, they are my age or older. So this was kind of revelatory and eye-opening for me. Here in Houston, we have had some quote unquote older, and I guess by older, maybe I'm saying like over 40, over 45, something like that, dancers continue on performing. A lot of other dancers have chosen to retire for whatever reasons, I don't know. Mine were a combination of family. I really just wanted to like be home and have dinner with my family, and fear of being considered too old, right? And now I have to admit, like 4 years after the pandemic, to think about being out on a Friday night at midnight dancing at a hookah club, just shoot me. Like, no, no, thank you. Those days for me are over. And I'm very happy, right? It's great. But this is my conversation to you. This is the conversation I want to have. Those of you who perform professionally or are involved in that realm, maybe you're booking dancers, maybe you are a professional dancer. At what age do you age out of professional performing? Does it depend on the city? Does it depend on the venue? Does it depend on the dancer? We had a dancer here in Houston for many years who danced at the Greek venues, not at the Arabic nightclubs, but the Greek venues. She danced until in her 60s. And I remember subbing for her when I was in my 20s. And every time I'd go in, I hadn't seen her perform. Later on, I did. And I thought, why would they have a 60 something in here performing when they could have this 20 something? I always thought they would like ask me to come more often, and they never did. And then I saw her perform and I knew why, right? Like she was incredible. She had a really long show, like a 45-minute show. She got the crowd involved. She was like doing magic tricks. She was incredible. She was absolutely amazing. And I really respected her for what she was able to put together. And she could dance circles around me. She danced that 45-minute show, barely broke a sweat. She was incredible, right? And so I firmly feel like an older, a more experienced dancer, right, in their 40s, 50s, 60s, can do an amazing job entertaining people if the people who frequent that venue don't have a knee-jerk reaction, like a knee-jerk ageist reaction. So this is what I want to know, because I did not choose to like dance past, say, like 45 years of age in the nightclubs, restaurants, private party venues for the most part. I don't have a lot of experience with like figuring out whether or not an audience thinks that I'm too old. I was always very cognizant of that. And so even early on in my late 30s, after I had a child, I would not dance for any birthday parties where the birthday person was 10 years younger than me or more, because I was like, no. I did accidentally end up dancing for a party. And it turns out like the kid totally could have been my child, right? And I was like, awkward. Like, I don't know if I would want, if I were some like young 20 something kid, if I would want someone old enough to be my mom dancing. I did my best. I think it went really well, but it was weird, right? It was weird. So tell me, how do you feel, especially those of you who are performing? How long have you performed for? How long do you intend to perform? For those of you who've maybe retired from performing, when did you retire from performing? And why did you retire from performing? I'm very curious, because while absolutely 1000% this dance is for all ages, all body types, all backgrounds, all kinds of people, I feel like sometimes expectations change when there is money involved, right? When suddenly it's for hire to entertain people who are looking for a certain thing. And now, whether or not that's like bad, if someone's hiring an entertainer to entertain their party and they know what their guests want, me as an entertainment booker, I've always said, hey, if you are looking for a younger dancer, a dancer who has a red costume, right? A dancer with long black hair, sure, you are the customer, and I want to make sure that you are happy. I want to make sure that your people are entertained. um but if there's an either a known or an unknown bias against a dancer who's older, what do you do with that? Do you go and dance anyway? Do you find them a younger dancer? Yeah, this is where it's a big question mark, because for me, I decided not to continue because I didn't want to end up in that space. And now I book dancers who are older than me, and clients seem incredibly happy. So that's awesome. I love that. I think I was wrong. Can't wait to hear from those of you who are professionally performing at my age or older. Let's continue this conversation, because I think it's really important. It can be inspiring to other dancers who want to perform professionally or even just get into this dance form right later in life, to know that we're here, right? We're loud, we're proud, we're dancing, we're having a great time. So thanks for this conversation. I can't wait to hear from you.